It's 1st of October, just on my way into work, and this is the beginning of part 21. No relevance to a train level crossing, of course, just waiting to get into the unit. Part 21 will see us start with a gearbox, because as I said in part 20, a slight delay guys. We'll get that gearbox mount sorted out now. We'll swap into auto, so swap into auto for part 21. We need to just find out where the gearbox sits, slightly further back in the transmission tunnel. Might have to move the mounts. First job for part 21 is to get the gearbox out of the Granada. Now, whilst that gearbox won't be used, the bell housing will be, and some of the electrical connections and some of the vacuum sensors I might be pinching off it. Why can't we use it? Well, it's an AL4D E box, which means the third and fourth gears computer controlled. We want the one where the third and fourth gear is just mechanical, which is the earlier box. Luckily I've got an earlier box, but it hasn't got a Pinto style or a Pinto bolt spacing bell housing, so pull that one off the Granada to get the bell housing. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to get the box out of the Grandad and then look at that bell housing and hopefully match it up to a Pinto. We're going to try that out today. It's going to take us a couple of hours to get the box out. Let's see what we can do. This will also be a standalone video. Okay, so here's the car, 2 litre Granada. A shame, but I'm going to save as much as I can. The sills and some of the chassis points on this car have rotted, which is probably why it got took off the road. I don't want to knock the Granada because I love this car. I can't restore it personally myself. Would have got scrapped. It went on eBay for 100 quid and no one bid on it. So we contacted the lister, said would he take 100. So we took 100. No one else was bidding on it. They had the chance to save it. What can I do? I love the car, but Granadas, for me, it's not my era. Although, as I said, I'm not knocking this vehicle at all. I think it's a great spec. I love it. It's a very comfortable car. I have driven these before, back in the early 90s. There's tons and tons of toys on it. Tons of toys. Electric seats, heated seats, electric back seats even. There's little switches down by the sides of the seats, which I'm presuming are either lumbar adjust or... I'll have to look at that. I don't know what the electrically adjusted seat does. We'll soon find out, because I'm going to strip it. Most of the parts will get saved. I'll take off as much as I can and box it up, as usual. You never know, the chassis might make it onto something else. I doubt it, but you never know. So, as it stands, I had the chance to get this gearbox out for the bell housing. It's damn me 100 quid for a bell housing, but I'll be getting other parts as well. I'll probably remove the seats in case I ever decide to use them on a Cortina. They will fit if you do some bracket adjustments. These are a fantastic seat. You never know, we might do a project on a Cortina that's custom, in which case these seats will come in nice. They are in good order. So first job today, let's get moving. Let's loosen all the bell housing bolts off and get the prop shaft off. Whatever we've got to do to get this box out, we'll do that now. Okay, so first view under the engine bay. We're not interested in the double overhead cam unit. That'll get sold separately. Car's going to go off to Dave, who does a lot of braking on eBay. He'll make use of whatever he can under here. My concern is to get that gearbox out. So we'll start with the bell housing bolts. We'll move all the pipes out of the way. It's quite a bit to do. Let's get cracking. Okay, engine running. We're going to drive into the unit just in case it gets cold out here. So engine up and running, and we'll drive in. We're off. That pains me to do it. I'm sorry everybody if you like Granadas, I really am. What can I do? It was going to get scrapped. No one would have got it, I'm telling you now. So, away we go. Feels nice. God, really, you know, I don't like doing this. In we go. This box seems to be working alright. I've just tried to blip it around the yard first and second. I managed to just get a feel for it whilst it wasn't a full test. I mean, I'm not using this box anyway, only the bell housing, but nice to know there's a box here that's running. So here's our Granada dash, trip computer, loads of goodies. Radio's missing, a few things, but tons of goodies. Let's just go in the back and see what those seats are all about. Actually, I will do, but they don't work. Okay, bonnet off, just starting to pull the pipes, cables, connectors. Want to make a clear area around, and then undo the gearbox, exhaust, prop shaft, all the rest of the water hoses and pipes, and then we'll try and lift this out with a forklift just straight out the bay. So we're nearly about a third of the way through. Okay, so I've got the prop shaft off, engine mounts off, most of the hoses I can. I think I'll just a starter motor to disconnect now. I've took the speedo cable drive up and left it in the gearbox just to plug the box, and I've put the end of the prop shaft donut in the end of the box as well, just to stop the auto fluid coming out. I've drained most of the fluid back, but it just makes it a bit neater. So cross member off as well, and then the gear selector lever off the gearbox. That's just a simple clip. Down by the gearbox the connections aren't too bad, most of them are up here. Power steering pump had to get chopped. We can see now there's the power steering output pipe holding us, so we'll just cut that and we'll see if there's any other cable. So we just go round and just look for any other pipes. Aircon pipes are off, cooler pipes for the gearbox are off. I think there's everything there. We're at about the right angle on this strap. I've got a big large rigging strap. I didn't use the hook points, I've pulled it off on the mounts at the bottom. You can just about get it on this angle. I've put a bit of board underneath, so when the tail end of the gearbox hits the ground it scrapes on the board. Did it that way. So it took about 2 hours just to get it into this position ready to come out. Now we don't want the engine. Hopefully someone can use it, although I don't know if these are popular or not, double overhead cams. If they are, then hopefully someone can make use. Looking at the diaphragm on the A4 LDE, the vacuum pipe for the vac solenoid comes up just here. So this is our first investigation now. That pipe there is feeding the vacuum diaphragm on the side of the gearbox. So that's coming after, so post butterfly on the carb. Well, it's not really the carb, is it? Because it's slightly different to set up this, but it's the accelerator. So that pressure drop. So if you're going to connect this to a Pinto, I'm going to presume we've got to put this on. We'll have to make a mod on the carb for it to accept that pipe, unless there's already one on there. We'll have a look at a Weber carb and see. There's a few other different types of vacuum arrangement for various things. To play it safe, I'm going to take all vac associated pipes off as well. So anything to do, or we suspect might be to do with the control of the gearbox, we'll remove. Okay, I'm just gonna, there's another pipe there to cut. That's the water pipe. So I'm just gonna cut the final pipes and then slightly draw back on the forklift. I'm using a forklift for this. Most of the fluids are out. There's a little bit of spillage. We'll have to mop that up with some degreaser. It's going to be on the tarmac of the drive there. But first steps to looking at the gearbox. Bell housing, because we know this is an AL4DE, which has the 3 and 4 gear shift electronically driven, so we don't actually want this box. We're interested in the bell housing off it. And also just to learn about things. This is a Cortina AL4D conversion video. If you've just joined the series, I'm fully investigating fitting an AL4D box into a Mark III Cortina. Purpose of today's exercise is to get a bell housing off a 2 litre Granada Mark III, because we believe, although I can't confirm till this engine's out, that the spacing is the same as Pinto spacing, and we can use some plates and bits and pieces. We're learning along the way. We know nothing, so we're starting out knowing nothing at all. So zero knowledge at the beginning of the video. If anyone's out there frustrated because they're saying, well, hang on, I know how you do it, just send us a comment with any tips or advice. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having a go. I'm certainly going to learn, that's for sure, and we'll get it right in the end. Okay, let's get this donkey out of here. Okay, on board we go. You join us as we lift out. Away he goes. Just going to catch there on the back, so I'll jump off the truck now and just push that forward off to clear the transmission. And we're high up. Nearly cleared the car. All I've got to do is just a gentle manoeuvre now down onto the pallet, and we've got the box off. You can see that the prop shaft tailpiece there just stopping the oil coming out the back. So nothing's dripping, so we're doing good. Nothing's dripping. Bit unorthodox this, but I happen to own a forklift, so make use of it. And there we are. Let's see what that bell housing is like. Getting close now to looking at the bell housing. So will this 2 litre double overhead cam bell housing fit on a Pinto? That's the whole purpose of this job. What 2 hours just to find this out. Now we're nicely on the pallet. First thing we do is take off the starter motor, which I've done. 3 13mm bolts on that starter motor and just pulled that back out of the way. We have a 19mm socket on the front of the pulley here. We use a breaker bar, a nice long lever bar with a 19mm socket to turn the engine round to get to the flex plate bolts. You'll see just in here there's 4 flex plate bolts. Now that connects the torque converter to the engine. The flex plate's bolted to the end of the crank, and then the torque converter bolts to the flex plate. That allows this a little bit of movement in it, forwards and backwards. I think that's why they call it a flex plate. I think that's why. So we get a 13mm again with a breaker bar, off of the breaker bar up inside like this, and then pull down, just loosen each one, go round, turn the engine to the next one, loosen them all up, and then we can just hand undo them. Once we've undone the flex plate bolts, there's only 4, just got a case of doing the 13mm head bolts on the bell housing, and then we should be able to pull the gearbox away from the engine and look if it fits the Pinto, which is today's exercise. Once that's done, I'll call it a wrap for today. So just move on sections at a time. So I'll spin round now on the front pulley and line up the next flex bolt head. I'm going to do that right now, just making sure you get some. I'll bring the torch out so we can see a bit better. It's daylight, but it's overexposing. Okay, so just hand turning the engine, and then we'll look for the next one to line up. Let me just turn that while I do that for you. Okay, there's our next flex bolt, 13mm. 3 more to go. So we'll get the 13 on this now, breaker bar on again, loosen that up. So you know where I am relative to the engine, I'll pull back. Starter motor aperture just at the back of the engine. Okay, all the mounting bolts are off. You can already see it starting to separate. All the torque converter bolts are off, and then all the bolts to the engine block are off all the way round. There was a couple at the bottom, three or four at the bottom, all the way up. So if we give this a wiggle, this should separate off. So I'm going to pop it under the forks, give it a wiggle, see what we get. Oh, there's one more pipe here to get off. That's that vac pipe. Look, vac pipe at the side. Up it goes. Up it goes to the just that side of the butterfly of the air intake. I think I've got everything else. Right, I'm going to loosen this off and pull this box off now. Okay, it's well on its way. I'm just going to gently pull that back now. Okay, so our Cortina box gets nearer. Overdrive, torque lock up in a Mark III. It's going to be good. It's going to be worth the effort. We're going to do it. Hopefully. Let's see if this fits a Pinto. And that's one of the big items we're after. The flex plate bolting straight onto the end of the crank. Now, are those crank spacings the same? I'm not quite sure yet. I haven't got a crank here to check it out on. We'll look at a Pinto clutch and have a look. Okay, there's our Pinto block, and yes, it does fit. The bell housing bolts are the same. Here, there's some differences, but the sandwich plate covers all that and makes it neat. So whilst it doesn't exactly fill all the gaps, what I've been told about these is looks like it's true, and that is that the Pinto bolt onto that bell housing. So there's our setup, which now gives us what I was after. By putting the engine mounts on here and putting the cradle into the car, we put this whole assembly into the car, and then we can work out whereabouts the transmission bracket needs to fit, so we can make an exact setup in the car. So we want to get this so there's loads of room and it's not touching anything. That's the first job, is to get it set, because once I've got it so this fits and there's plenty of clearance all around the box, the car can get back off to paint then, because that's the only thing that's stopping it. Then this can come on the bench and we can do what we want with it. Main thing was to get that onto there, to get all the relative spaces. So engine mounts on, cradle on, then push the cradle up into the car, and then we'll support the end of the gearbox on the jack. Then we'll get the cross member, and then we'll weld the right brackets to fit, and then adapt underside in the transmission tunnel to accept the bracket. We may have to move the original brackets. I believe they're around this area here, and that they're going to be too close to this slightly fatter tunnel. It's not a problem. We'll drill the spot welds off and pull them off, but we'll leave it such that they can always be refitted. So we'll mark where they go, and then anyone that wanted to revert back to Type 9, you just bolt the brackets on. Okay, so we've got what we wanted. That's great. I'll clear up now. I just wanted to do that today, just to start getting an idea of the measurements. So it's all worthwhile. There's our flex plate. We better get that off, because the engine is going with the car back to the breakers, which will be further broken down for bits. All this will be stripped back, I would have thought, but I need that part. Then I'll go back to the car over there and strip off any of the rest of the vac switches and a few more little connectors and stuff I'm going to use for projects. So I'll carry on stripping some bits off the Granada as well, electrical bits, but the bulk of the job's done. We've got what we needed. It's been worth taking it out. This has also got the nice electronic kick down solenoid there, which I'll be using, and it looks like it won't be too difficult to use this linkage onto the original Cortina T-bar shifter. Maybe have to cut and weld this bracket here to suit, bend and cut, whatever we've got to do. That's another thing we can do when it's in the car. We can assemble the T-shifter in the car. I've got the centre console plate now, thanks for Jane for that. Janie very kindly sent that out for me, so we can put the T-shifter in, and then we can first we'll get it mounted and we'll do the T-shifter. So that's today's little target. Each day we'll be doing a bit more on this project, this Cortina to A4LD conversion. So hopefully this is a standalone video as well as part of the series on my Cortina restoration. This is a standalone video that's going to take you through my experiences of getting a A4LD box to go in a Mark III. Any tips and suggestions you've got, if I'm doing something wrong or you think you could help me, feel free to comment. As long as it's constructive criticism, I don't mind. I know there's a lot of experienced people out there who may have done this before, who are sitting, looking and watching, thinking you should do this. Well, that's alright. Just let us know what I can do to improve the job. And if I can help you by doing this, then that's good. Everyone's helping everybody. Okay, end of this little section. Let's move on to something. I'm looking very neat with the sandwich plate on. Looks factory with a sandwich plate, so I'm happy about that. That finishes the job off. Doesn't leave any horrible gaps. So pretty good. Next, get the flex plate off. Just jammed it there, and then again the breaker bar, 17mm, and then loosen them and then just get your ratchet on. So flex plate off next. ARP bolts. I think we'll be reusing these bolts. You get some special locking compound for them. We'll do that a lot later down the line though. You can buy these in sets with the locking compound. Do them on your manual cars as well, on your clutch. ARPs, don't want these coming loose, so you're in trouble. But we'll talk about that nearer the time. Just want to salvage this nice flex plate. Lovely. It's nice to see how it all works and how it all comes together. Prior to this I was just trying to picture it in my mind, but now I'm clear and ready to lift this off. Lovely, it's quite light, very surprisingly light. So your ring gear's built onto your flex plate. Now we're just hoping that that's the same spacing as the end of a Pinto. If it's not, then we're in trouble. I don't know yet. I'm going to have to see on that one. I'm going to look at a clutch. Okay, in fact actually I don't even know if a clutch bolt's on the end there. I need to consult. But that's part of that for now. Hopefully that'll be useful. Leaving this now surplus, so we'll wrap this up and put it away. We don't need it. That can be sold on. Anyone wants a double overhead cam engine? I don't know what they're like. I don't know anything on these engines, or that whether they're raced, whether they're tuned, whether they're scrapped, whether nobody likes them. I don't know. But power steering pump on there and an aircon pump on it. It's got to be useful to somebody. We'll be moving that on, just in case anyone's watching the film and wanted to see if it's still available. The date today is the 1st of October, so 2016. So if it's 5 years down the line, then it's probably gone by now. But as at the 1st of October 2016, there was a 2 litre double overhead cam engine running, available. Contact us for that. Alright, just letting that gearbox idea settle in my mind for a little bit. We'll go back to that gearbox in just a sec. So just going to pick up the powder coating stuff now. I told you we had some lovely powder coated items to pick up. You remember all those suspension arms and the cradle and everything like that. So looking forward now to seeing some shiny stuff. We're coming into Rhino Alloys, who do all my powder coat. We'll show you their little setup and how they do it. A little bit of a clip just to see how the powder coating's done. Let's go and see the boys and see our shiny things. There's our cradle there. Yeah, walk through. Show us how it all works. There's some wheels getting done. Wheel balancer. Prep bay there. Powder coating department. That's the diamond cutting machine, is it?
Yeah, CNC machine, yeah. We've got two.
Yeah, the swing machines there for doing your wheels. So you do the whole lot. Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah, so that's the oven for the powder coating. That's where Rhino Alloys do all the powder coating for our Cortina. That's where it all gets done. Your blasting cabinets, just these at the max size. How did you do that clip of mine? Because that's quite big. Did it fit in that cabinet?
You'll have to do a bit.
Wow. Oh, I see. Yeah, you offer it up.
Yeah.
So the clip went into those shop blasting cabinets there. That's how it all happens. Rhino Alloys there, doing our powder coating and doing all our stuff on the wheels. They'll be doing the Rostyle wheels as well. I'll stick a link at the end of the video for that. That's Rhino. They're based in Lancashire. So that was good. So let's get the powder coating bits back to the unit and we'll lay them out and see what they look like. Looking good. There's some different coloured stuff as well. The jack, the windy jack is also in there in blue, and then most of the rest of the stuff's in black, those suspension clips and things you saw me stripping on part 20. So carrying on part 21 then, where does that take us today? That takes us to offering up the gearbox. We're going to get a rough clip. We don't want to use the powder coated clip for offering up the gearbox. We'll just use a rough rusty old clip and that engine block you saw, and we'll offer the block and the gearbox up to the transmission tunnel. We'll also remove the manual gate where the gator goes on the transmission tunnel. So we're going to wire brush down on the inside, find the spot welds, pop that off. We're going to mark it so you can always fit it back on, and then you can always retrofit the car back to Type 9. So it just holds a little bit more extra value that you can just easily revert it. And when we take off the engine transmission tunnel mounts, we'll also mark those so that they can be pop riveted back on or screwed or bolted back on. Probably with the stresses there, we'll use some M10s or M8 bolts, whatever fits. We're going to have a look, see how that works. So heading back to unit to continue with the gearbox offering up, and that's some big bumps. Oh, a roller coaster ride there. Yeah, the Mondeo hitting some serious bumps. We're going to head back to the unit. We're going to offer that box up, as I said. Then we're going to lay out the powder coat bits on a card sheet, just so you can see the lovely shiny things, because they always start to look good when you lay out the shiny bits and bobs. See you back at base. Okay, here's just a selection of the parts. Just laid a few out for us to see how nice they come out from powder coat. The jack looking good there, and it's close to original colour. All the rest of the parts, so I say a selection of the parts. Those wishbones came up nice. Good finish on the wishbones. Do like those. So powder coating's a good, strong, durable finish. Swampy's been running it for 2.5 years, and I just wipe down my suspension clip every 6 months, just a damp cloth, and comes up nice. The lower arm, then brake backing discs, brake backing shields came up good too. So plenty of bits there, all coming out nice. And then just over here on the floor, bell housing for the was going to be the Type 9, won't be used, and then the rest of the stuff I've left wrapped up. There's plenty more stuff in here, so we'll look at all that stuff when it goes onto the car. But yeah, so that's that. Gearbox still there where we left you off with a gearbox. Sorted out the question with a flex plate. We need a C4 flex plate, C3 stroke C4 flex plate, just to get those alignment holes right. This one's no use. This is off the double overhead cam engine. Crank bolts are different, so we need to make sure we get a flex plate and the spacer ring, which I think is probably something like this, which gives us the right distance for the torque converter to sit in the bell housing. They've got to be set just in the bell housing. I think it's about 8mm back from the face plate of the bell housing. So you've got to make sure that when you offer up your flex plate that it sets the torque converter in the right place, and also the torque converter's got to go on in the right way to pick up I think feeds for the oil pump, or the pump which pumps the hydraulic fluid around. It's got to line up with the torque converter. So I'm learning all the time. We'll be ready soon to start offering this up to the engine. Really the only thing I need to do is, as I said, get the engine gearbox mount sorted on the car so we can get it off for the paint shop, and then we can take our time with this job. We'll get that gearbox cleaned up. It's not this one I'm using, but just the bell housing off this one. We'll be taking that off. Back end of this box here, be taking off the kick down solenoid, and then that's it. Speedo drive as well from it. Speedo drive's on this side. It's dual output. Here you've got a speed sensor and you've got the mechanical drive. We only need the mechanical drive. Actually fits on this side on the other box. That side's blanked off, so that tail housing must have been different on the AL4D E boxes. So as I said, that's a DE box which has got another coil in it which kicks in the overdrive. The other box I've got off the Granada, the early 85 Granada, the 85 box, that just has the coil for lockup only and has the overdrive as a mechanical operation. So that's the box I want to use. So purpose of the exercise, as you know, get the mount positions done. Just diverted off to pick up the powder coating. So now I'll be bringing down, I've got in stock a cut up shell which we're going to use to mock up this first before we go on to my car, because it's easier access by using part of an existing chopped up shell. Kept it for R&D purposes, and I planned for it, and the planning's paid off, because we can now use that shell to replicate the engine in position. So I'll do that next. I'll get it down out of stores. The shell is stored on a pallet, shrink wrapped up. We'll get that off the rack, bring the half the shell down off the rack, and then I'll get myself a jack and we'll get this lined up and offered up into the engine bay. Let's see what we get with that. Let's do that. Right, let's get this gearbox into position. 2 into 1 will go. Line that up there, and I'll just drag the pallet back onto our little shipping pallet. And I just go like this. Send it under the car. This is the area we're heading. And I get underneath, pull this in. Then we're going to get it on the cradle. It's ready for the cradle now. Okay, that'll do me about. Get the cradle on that bad boy. Okay, so here we are in the engine bay, the Mark III. Just wheeled that in on the pallet truck there. Then what we've done, we're quite lucky here with this dolly that we've got, because, just take it down, so a little bit out of breath, just legged it across the workshop there. Right, now, the dolly that I built, it's got a cross member on it there. You can see just going across with the two caster wheels. With the engine on this packing crate, and no sump on the engine and no head on the engine, it's able to clear the front of the car just by pulling the dolly over the engine rather than pushing this into it. I just drew the car over it, and then when it gets to that cross member there, because the engine's tipping in the middle on the bell housing, you just push down on the engine block, that kicks the back of the gearbox up, and then you pull just on the front of the car, and that bar then lands underneath the engine. I've actually not had to do anything, you know, I'm one-handed on it, so I've done it on my own there. So I've lined it up halfway. Now, because it's on that tipping point there, it's almost ready to just hoist over a little bit more, and then we get another pallet like this one and just put it behind, and then we'll push it and it'll land on the pallet behind, so it clears the bar, and you've actually got it under your car then, on the dolly itself, so it made it a little bit easier. I was going to get the chassis down off the rack, the cut up shell, but I've cut it just behind the engine gearbox mounts in the tunnel. I'm probably not giving myself enough room at the back to do the mount, so it wasn't really worth doing that. It might be good, the front end of the cut up shell, for engine testing if you were trying to fit a bigger engine in the bay or something. That's why I got it and kept it as a cut up shell, for reference points and for panels possibly, and for putting engines in if I ever did a custom V8 or something like that, you know. Anyway, that's separate. So there's the engine. What we need to do, you can see I've got my engine mounts on. That's a spare pair I had powder coated. I normally wouldn't use them. I'd use an old rusty pair, but that's all I've got at the moment. Got to get the clip, and then if I lift the front of the engine up now and let it balance on that bar, I should be able to bolt the engine to the clip. Okay, So we'll do that next, and then what you'll have then is a jack under the clip to jack it into position reasonably high up actually, because the car's actually off the ground. So it'll be suspended. It'll be a little bit precarious. Well, it'll be quite interesting to see how this works. Let's just have a go. As I said, the whole purpose, I just said it earlier, is to get those mount points, and you can see already that I reckon these are way too close. Look, see, it's fatter on those two, but there's about 12 spot welds on each one. We're going to pick them off. We'll keep them safe, and then we'll move back down some different mounts. I've cleaned up the original Granada mounting plate, and I'm going to bolt that underneath in a minute to the gearbox, and we're going to see what a Granada plate lines up like, and if we can let the Granada plate do most of the work, hopefully, and then just build an adapter bracket. It may be that I don't need to use Cortina tunnel mount brackets, and they're not going to work anyway because the shape of the tunnel changes as it goes further back down the car, so there's not much point with you know, reusing them further down and cutting them up. We may as well just make our own bracket. Now I'm thinking it might just go straight. We'll have a look. But that's it. So I've reduced the weight as much as I can. There's no torque converter on, and just a Pinto block with 4 bolts going into the bell housing. So most of the weight's in the middle on the gearbox itself. But we're going to get the clip now, and we're going to try and hoist it into the car. So just stand up, take you overhead again. So there we are, and we've got to do the T-shift selector as well. I've got an adapter bracket for that. I'll show you that now. I'll take you around for the T-shift adapter. Sorry to divert everybody, and know you were looking forward to the paint, but I think from what I'm getting off YouTube, most people are into this idea, this nice cruising box. So there's our adapter plate, and that goes in place of the manual box aperture plate. Now if you can see, I'll take you in, don't often use the zoom, as you know. We don't really do zoom here on Cortina City. Find it really tacky. But there, you see, that's the seam sealer round. Now if we expose the seam sealer, scrape it off, we should see a series of spot welds round the edge of that opening. Then we can pop that off and keep it safe. Then this one's come not quite drilled spot welds yet. I think they started that, but it was proven a little bit, I think they didn't want to damage it, which did the right thing, thanks for that, and supplied it just there. So I'll just unpick the old metal off that. Then we put that in the middle. Then we get the centre console brackets. This is quite important. We'll have to just refit the centre console brackets, because this aperture has to land in the right position relative to the centre console. The T-shift stick itself, we'll get that in a minute, I'll show you, it's not mega critical that it's exactly right to the millimetre. There's a lot of forgiveness in the selector bar, in the way that you can adjust the selector bar, the gear selector bar rod, so it's not mega critical. But what is important is it's centralised to the centre console, and that it looks square in the centre console. I'll check on my car at home, my GXL automatic, and make sure that it's actually central and not like an inch forward, or it might not sit exactly concentrically, well, not concentrically, but you know, with a square within a square, exactly even border. It could be that it's slightly further forward. That I'll check, and then we'll measure the distance relative into the centre console, then put the centre console on here, then mock that up in the same position by moving that plate, then mark the plate in the right place, and then we can, what I'll do with that plate is I'll rivet that plate on. I'm not going to weld it on, I'm going to rivet that onto this tunnel here, so you'll see rivets on the inside of the car. I think that's the neatest way. Then when you ever come to fit your old tunnel, what you could do is from the outside of the car, you could fit small bolts through, or you could re-rivet your new plate to suit that hole pattern. So that's the way to do it, so that's what we'll do. I'll just show you the T-shifter now. Okay, so here's our T-shifter, which is a lovely piece of kit. I love the look of these. They just look nice. Nice. So off we go. The black glove goes auto. That would sit within this bracket. trying that they line up there. So across we go with that, like something like that, and then in we go with that, something like that. So we're setting up. That's our idea. I mean, to me, as soon as I see an auto stick, it just makes me feel good. I don't know why, I just like them. I just think that they're great. And with the 4-speed or 3rd speed overdrive box and lockup feature, it's going to be an exciting thing to have. It's something a little bit different, but keeping it forward, and it's how they would have progressed anyway. If the Cortina had been carry on going, I think, you know, they would have ended up with those boxes. I'm convinced of it. So let's get the cradle now, and to start the difficult bit of just offering up the assembly into the engine bay. Leave that with me now. Go and get some. Okay, cradle, the muckiest, rustiest, crappiest cradle clip in the business, but it'll work for what we need. We need 2 engine mounts now, and I've got to be really careful I don't damage my powder coated engine mounts as well. So we need the rubber engine mounts to fit into the cradle. I'll just find a pair of those now, but they're going to be, I can't find any now, I need to go and have a look. Then once I've got them, I'll cock up the front of the engine. It should just rock almost, can't do it with one hand, but that'll just pivot on that bar, and then as it pivots on the bar, lift the cradle underneath, then bolt straight to your engine mount points there, and then get the jack under the cradle and start jacking it up, and at the same time start lifting on the back of the gearbox. It'll be a bit tricky because when the Pinto engine sits in the cradle, that doesn't hold it, it's just a pivot, so the engine will tilt back and rock on the engine mount points. I've actually had one, I think it was when I was doing Swampy, whereby I had Swampy's engine on the cradle, on the wheels and everything all built up. The clip was fully built, and it ripped the engine mounts off, ripped the rubbers, because they're not designed for a pulling force. They're only designed for a down compression force, really. So if you try and pull back on your engine rubbers, they tend to just rip, or at least the ones I had did anyway, and the engine slid back. So I had to build a frame to support the back of the gearbox when I was doing the engine test. If you look on some of the earlier videos that I've done for Swampy, around the parts 30, maybe up to 44, I'm not sure, around that area, there's the engine, no, it'll be around the 40 area on the videos that I've uploaded a couple of years ago now. You'll find that there's an engine test one there, and you can see the cradle that I've built to support the whole assembly. So have a look at that if you've not seen any of those videos. Right, let me get the jack and the rubber mounts. Just preparing up the transmission selector mounting, just cleaning up the paint off there so we expose the spot welds. We're going to flip it round and grind from the back using the croc sander on that one. That'll take that piece of spare metal off. Things are going good because we've got the engine in. How's about that then? Cradle is mounted up, and I'm just getting ready to take off the housing for the manual gearbox, the gator mounting plate, and then I'll take you underneath the car and I'll show you how the engine and box fit underneath the car. But first we're going to clean all the paint off that and drill the spot welds.
Back in the day,
bit more to get that. That'll go now, that. Bit further down. You don't damage the back of the plate this way. Comes off nice. There you go. Lovely. That one's already had a little drill on it. A little bit further in. We're nearly good to go there, nice and neat. That'll do, Rick. Right, so that's that housing cleaned up there, see? All nicely done. I'm using them long nose pliers, as you saw, to just unfold, and then the sander, belt sander, takes it from the back and you don't get any damage there, no distortion on the plate. So that's good, but this is going to be a bit more tricky. We're going to have to slowly work this off. It's going to be tricky. I don't want to drill through into the car inside, so I just want to slowly work that. It's going to take some time, this. There's a pretty deep welds. We'll give it a try and see if we can ping this off. Alright, so we're on with that next. Let's get the lights on it for you. There we are. So I've just started with a few, but the battery on the drill's run out. Great, so it's waiting for that to charge up. I'm going to just start getting the screwdriver under the edge and slowly start pulling at that. Long nose pliers will help with this, and a chisel. We don't want to deform the transmission tunnel, so as clinical as we can on this, and then I'll take you down and look how well the gearbox is doing. Alright. Okay, that's successful. It wasn't as bad as I thought. I was thinking that was going to be tricky to take off, but it's actually quite easy. I went through relatively smoothly. Let me just put a light on there for you guys. So we drilled, carefully took our time, worked our way round. I'll just show you some friends you can use for jobs like this, some tools that'll help with the job. If you're doing this job, if you've googled up Cortina gearbox A4 LD conversion, then you're going to be probably finding these videos. So whilst you're not restoring your car, perhaps you may be just doing the gearbox. So these series of videos are a subsection from the main series on my Ruby restoration, so we've got 2 in 1 really. I used a angled screwdriver. It's just a cheapo screwdriver that bent in the vise, and that helps you to start unpicking spot welds, at least on the transmission tunnel anyway. Started just at the edge and just slowly lever up. You'll see where the indents are for each spot weld, so you take them out with a spot weld drill bit, something like that one. Keep it on a reasonably slow speed to stop it blunting. Take out a section of spot welds and then lever under there, and you might hit them if you're lucky, you may not, so you don't always hit them square on. I think I hit 8 out of 10 on this run, so I was quite lucky. When you're prising up and if nothing's happening, then put a bit of tension on with this screwdriver there. You can even work your way, that's why I've shaped it, you can curl round the back, lift, and you might find a little ping, or at least you'll see the point where the spot weld's pivoting, and then you can finish it with a drill again if you have to. If there's a really stubborn one, you can just get the belt sander and just take it out. I couldn't get that one there, so I just finished it with a belt sander and it pinged. So, but I was trying to preserve this as best that I could, which we have done. It's all in one piece and savable to be used. If you ever reverted this back to manual, we'd be fitting that back on. Alright, so we put that to one side safe. I'll straighten it up and just crock sand any rough metal edges off it. Put it in some primer just to stop flash rust in there. Wrap it and then put it into stores ready. So that's done. You just saw me cleaning this one up. This is ready for the auto, so we'll go in there. Now, I talked about using the center console as a reference. I'll still do it, center console bracket just to go there, but a strange thing, I spotted a strange not coincidence, but it must be that this is off a Mark 5, by the way. This is Mark 3 auto and manual, but the spot welds are in the same place, look. So they must have had a jig that they used to do the spot welds and kept it going throughout, because all the spot welds, well, them two, in fact they're all in the same, look at the spot weld pattern, identical. So Ford somehow, I don't know, I'd love to know how they did it, because you just think that the claws come in and bang 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 round go your spot welds. They can't be, there must have been a jig. So if anyone ever worked on that plant or knows someone who did, please let me know what it was. Was it they would have put that piece of metal on there, then somehow, this wasn't automated, I don't think it was automated, they would have used, I don't know how they've done it, you know. I'm wondering if it was a one machine that just did the whole lot. Bang. It could have been. Anyone want to write in and tell me what they think about that? But look, we're wondering where we're going to put this to get it in the right place, following the rules on this. Then look, watch, see that spot weld there? I'll just point them out, the camera might not pick it up. There you go, there's one. That's the one I drilled through, straight through. So there, and then we can use that hole, watch, and look, they're in the same place. Why? I do not know. Even that one is. Here, do you notice this? That's for the reverse switch on the normal gearbox, I think, or it could be the speedo cable. Actually, might be the speedo cable dimple thing, you know, to give you room inside. We're not going to be needing that because we're not that high up. I think that's what that dimple is. I'll have to look on my car now. What side's my speedo cable on? I think it is this side. Would it be right? Yeah, because your prop shaft on this would be coming out about there, because this is a longer box. Anyway, enough of that for now. We're thinking that goes on there. However, just in case, yeah, there's another one that lines up there to there and there to there. Look, what's the chances of that? It's too much coincidence, see? So watch, over they go and everything's in line. So, oh, in fact, actually, no, I might be wrong there. Hang on, that one's in. They're the same spacing, look, exactly, but not in line with this end. they're the same spacing but not in line with this end, so because of that I'm not going to use them as the reference. We know we're going to have to get a spirit level across this. First we'll make sure that the car itself's level, so we'll find an even point on the car that you can use as a reference point. The slam panel, I would have thought. Spirit level on the slam panel, then the spirit level on here, twist that till it's level, and all we need to know is how far forward or back this fits. I'm going to guess it's around here. Centre console on top, and then see if the stick shifter fits roughly the middle, or exactly the middle of the console. Okay, so that's what we'll do. Once we're satisfied with that, I'll put a couple of rivets in this to hold it. I'm going to plug weld it on. I've decided I'm not going to bolt it on. So I didn't like the idea. I was going to rivet it. I don't know. I haven't made my mind up yet. Could rivet it. We'll see how I feel. Anyway, that's going to be fixed. That's going to be measured. We've got to get the centre console now and just check the position. Then when I've done that, I'm happy with this. I'll put this on, put some tech screws through, put this on. Then I can start to look at the linkage positions, and also we're going to start looking at our gearbox mounts. Now, because we've got more room, with us cleaning all this back, I can now take you in to show you where the gearbox mount is. So here's the light coming down. We're going to go in there. So here's our A4 LD box, slightly wider and longer than the standard box. Now look down here, let's switch the light to forward. You're going to see my lamps just shining on the original gearbox mount, and you can see that the pan of the gearbox is touching that mount, and we do need to come up slightly on the engine as well, so that's in the way at the moment, so those mounts have got to be removed. So we'll be doing that as well. There you go. So they've got to come off, and we've got to make new mounts. Just there's my cross member off the Granada, which we're going to be using. That needs to be hitting a mount here. Now we want to make the mounts vertical mounts. I'll take you back up. What you don't want to do, okay, is, let's get that, use my hands to demonstrate this. What we don't want to do, there's a gearbox there, see that central spine? We're going to be lining that up with a laser on these centre points. There's a centre point on your bulkhead, there's a centre point there, there's a centre point there, centre point there. I want the laser line straight down here, and the laser line is going to hit that spine of the gearbox, so that the gearbox exactly in the middle of the car. And that's what you need. You never want something that's spinning that speed offset, because there's a gyroscopic effect as well here at work, slightly anyway, on the gearbox, and that force needs to be in the centre of your car so that it acts as a form of stabilisation. Everything needs to be on the centre line, so you wouldn't want that gearbox kicking out whilst I'll be able to adjust the bracket, and the prop shaft will centralise it all naturally. You want to make it so the prop shaft's not pulling against it, and that it's all very nicely in a line. So for that reason, I'll strike the laser level down here and get it to hit that spine and all the way up, so I'm convinced that the gearbox is centralised. Then I'll make sure that the angle of the gearbox is correct, and that's done by going to the front of the car and looking at the distance between the radiator panel and the front fan, or the face of the engine block versus a piece of board across the radiator front. Your fan is designed to be, this is your cooling fan on your fan belt, designed to be parallel with the radiator. If you notice on the car, I don't know if we can see from here, let's have a look so you can see what I'm on about. There is the radiator mounting panel, and whilst we can't see it from this angle, that's got a rake on it, forward rake coming in, and the reason it has is the radiator slightly tilts backwards into the car to match the engine, which slightly sits backwards, so you can drain your oil out your oil sump plug, so that you can have the correct drivetrain line. All sorts of reasons why that engine's slightly set back. So your Pinto engine's slightly set back in the bay, which means that the fan is slightly back, because that's square with the engine, which means you need to have your radiator angled, which is why on the slam panels you've got those angled brackets there, which bring the radiator square with the fan. So we know that that has to be set that way, and that will dictate the level of the back cone, the tail output of the gearbox. So once that's square at the front, we'll know the distance then. Once we tighten the mount up as well, we'll tighten up the Granada engine mount, there it is, tighten that up properly to the gearbox, and then we'll know that the distance that you've got between the end of them bracket bolt holes and the floor pan itself is the distance we've got to make the bracket achieve. Now what I might do is go slightly under with the bracket and then use spacing washers. I don't know yet, I might do that. That'll give me some tolerance, some play that I can get away with. If indeed we find that the prop shaft tries to pull it up a little bit more, you'd remove the spacing washers and go straight to the brackets that I make. We'll see how we play with that. I'd like to have adjustment up and down as well as lateral, just in case the theory of the engine square at the front, it doesn't follow through. In other words, let's build ourselves a little margin of error with the bracket. So we might make it just a little bit too short, and then you make the final distance up with just a set of washers, so we'll have 5mm play in that bracket. Okay, so that's the idea, that's what we're going to try and do. But before I do any of that, I'll just want to make sure the T-shift sits in the right place. That requires the center console, so let's go and get the center console. Okay, using that bracket there to get a position, there's some holes here for the center console. That clip for the hole there goes halfway across, so I just put the center console onto that center console just behind me. Gonna keep it out of the way now because it's the only one I've got with the big square cut out. The other center console, I've had to strip it. There's the gear gate around, so I've been careful handling that because I don't want to damage the paint. Anyway, we'll put that in position there. Transmission tunnel opening looks like it's about there, so we'll double check the measurements on it, but we think that's right. So that means I can take this off, and that gives me what I need. So we're going to go underneath the car now before we wrap for today. I'll just show you how the gearbox sits, and I'll tell you about that centralising of the engine. And then I'm calling it a wrap. It's getting late. It's okay, so we're doing good. A couple of little tech screws there if you've never used these before. Here's a little jar with these are great little friends for you. A Phillips head or posi drive head with a little drill bit on the end, and you can just send them into metal. Use your mag mount drill bit. So nice quick release drill bit, magnetic, holds it on and away you go. Quick release on your bits. Nice. Get one of them, get yourself a power drill that's got a light on it, because it makes life very easy. Right, so we've set that up. I'll leave the interior work now because I think we've done good progress today on the auto gearbox conversion. I'll just, before I wrap, take you underneath the car, show you how things are looking under there. Here we go, let's crawl underneath and have a little look. So you join me now as we go on our little journey underneath into the underground. Just enough room for me to move around, just some card on the ground there. I've got some work mats, I'm going to bring them in, some sponge mats which just keep you warm. Floor's starting to get a bit cold. Okay, up we go, and there's our gearbox looking central. You can see the Granada mount that's attached to it, which we're going to be using. It seems to suit the profile of the car all right. So further back, just above the mounts, you'll see the original tunnel mounts fouling the pan. They've got to come off, but other than that there's loads of room for that box to fit, so it doesn't hit the tunnel at all. So just those mounts is the only thing in the way, so we'll be spot welding them off. Same process you saw earlier on, drill bit. And then what we're going to use is a section of floor I've already got cut off for Cortina. Flip it upside down, mark the relative position on that piece of section of shell. Then we're going to make, using cardboard, we're going to make, let me just move for you, it'll be a bit shaky the camera now as I crawl over these support bars for the dolly. We're going to make, with cardboard, templates that match the profile that are vertical templates. I don't want to extend out and take the easy route and bolt to the pan there, because it's going to create flex and the gearbox will be able to move. We don't want that. We're going vertical on our mounts properly, and we're going to try and make them look like factory mounts. So that's our challenge. Cardboard template, and we're going to try and make these mounts look the real deal. Okay, so that'll be quite a little bit of an engineering task to do, but I want it so that it looks like them mounts are supposed to be there on the shell itself, as though the car had been modified to take a A4 LD box. So that's going to take some time to do, but I want to do it. I want to get it right. I want this to look neat. Okay, so once I'm happy about the height of the engine and the height of that mount, we can then measure the distance and make our mounting brackets that we need. So that's how the gearbox is looking under the tunnel right now. And now I'll take you to the engine bay and show you what I mean about lining the engine up. And then it's a wrap for tonight. Right, here's our view in the engine bay then. Let's get some light on again for you. So, cradle in. I had to use a series of blocks of wood and jacks. Jack up the front, place it on blocks of wood, take the jack to the back, jack it up, and eventually I managed to get it by just jacking a bit of time. Managed it on my own to get that into there. It's a little bit tricky, but we got it in the end. So we've got securing bolts through, there and there. So it's the clips held in place like that. Alright, and now here's the front of the engine block, and here's those curved back panels. Look how that rakes back, that panel. See that kinking at the top? So that's making an incline forward, and you'll notice that the engine also tilts, well, forward at the bottom and backwards at the top, so that the distance between the front of the engine and that slam panel, that radiator mount panel, in theory should be parallel. That means that the water pump just goes here. When that water pump's on, and let's imagine my torch is the fan would be here approximately, and then the radiator would be there, and the distance should be parallel. I'll check on my Cortinas at home that is the case and that there isn't a slight change, but I'm almost sure that that's how the engine block sits. It sits raked back, parallel with the fan, parallel with the radiator. So what I'll do when I get home, I can put a board on the front of the fan and then a board on the radiator and just measure the distances between them and see. Then I'll compare it on the green car. So I'll compare it with two Cortinas and take an average, and that should be where we are. So that's how it all sits together. That means that once we're happy with this gap here, that means that gives you your final tail housing height for the mounts, so we'll know how long to make those mounts. So that's the idea, that's why we were doing that. So I'm making good progress. Don't forget we've got to centralise the transmission tunnel as well. We want to make sure that's right. We don't want any errors on this. Alright, so call it a day for today. I'll catch you tomorrow. Over and out. Right, now we've got the gearbox in position. Here's the mount, I just took it off now. So we've got to build a bracket to support this mount. Neat a bracket as we can, neat and compact. So I'm going to try for some angle iron there. If we weld two captive nuts, that can bolt to that. We'll use spacers. I'll build it so that it's about 10 mil off, because I think the gearbox has got to come up a little bit yet. So I'm going to build a bracket just shy, so it's got spacers. So we need to measure this, cut that down there, and then we're going to have a piece of flat 2 mil plate coming up, which we can fold to the profile of the tunnel, and then to give it some strength, I'll put a small piece of box section inside here like a rib. We'll cut the box section at the back of it and bend it so it follows the profile up, so you'll have a shaped rib piece. Then we'll get it powder coated. So a bit of box section like this, some angle iron, captive nuts on the flat plate here so we can offer it up to the car and then bolt it from inside on the transmission tunnel. It'll pull it pull it into the thing nice and solid, and you can always remove the bolts, take it off. So I'm going to measure that and cut 2 pieces of this for either end. Then some flat 2mm plate, which is pretty strong stuff. Drill through here and plug weld, so the plate will be plug welded to this. The plate will come up here, then we put 4 holes in the plate, which will then drill through the transmission tunnel to secure it, and we can either plug weld or bolt. I'm going to do a bolt through mount. I'll have it all powder coated, so the idea is it just looks part of this really. So you've just got a 1-piece engine mount. That's the way to do it. Did have another idea of making a sort of fabricated tunnel mount system, but it requires too much folding. I'm not that good. I'm going to do a neat powder coated tunnel bracket. Okay, I'll show you what I mean now. I'm going to start measuring and cutting this angle iron. Okay, just with a set square, measured that cut line. We've done 1 bracket, that's for the end there, so that's going to have 2 captive nuts to go with those holes. We can mark that later. And then, as I said, on the back of this, let's get a piece of metal to show you what I mean. There's a flat plate which will just slightly tapers in, and then that will bolt onto the inside of the tunnel. So be that coming up that shape there. Then what we do, just to give it strength, we put a rib on the inside, and then that's it, you're done. But we need to put the plate in first and just get the bend right, so the profile's right for the rib. Okay, so it's just a single rib in the middle, just to stop some flex in it, give it a bit of strength. Let's do this cut now here for the end bracket. They're actually different lengths, these end brackets. I don't know why this tapers in, but I didn't want it to overhang because I thought it'd look ugly at the edge. So this L shape angle iron is narrower. So I'll get the angle grinder on. I've used a pallet. It's handy if you've got an old wooden pallet. They're great for doing metal work on, because you can do cuts between them, clamp stuff on the end like I have done here, and you can work on the floor, which I like to do. I like working on the floor. So angle grinder, 4.5-inch disc on there just to slice straight through that. The disc will come in and give us a pretty straight cut if you aim for there and there for your wheel. Let's do that. Okay, 2 L pieces ready. Now we'll get the 2mm sheet steel. We'll draw a little template up now and how it's going to fit. This is where we'll go over to the car and use our section of cut up floor chassis that I kept for projects. We can use that now to line this little bad boy up. I've marked on the transmission, so let's go over there and I'll show you what I mean. Little piece of car section cut up. So I'll take you over there and we'll go and have a look at that. Okay, here's our scrap piece of floor section that I've kept. Always pays to keep many Cortina bits as you can, even if you've got a flat pack them like I did with this. Kept this for the aperture there and a few other things. Not that mount, that's knackered. Okay, so I know that this bracket fits. I've measured under the car where the gearbox approximately is going to go. It's a shame it just doesn't go there, isn't it? If only. So it lands, that's the centre point, that yellow dot, that's where we sit. In the car, that is where we sit. Just almost flush with the original mount points. So what happens is these will be facing on the inside around this area, I think. Looks like it. Let's put that one other way around this, somewhere like this. Just mocking it up approximately there and there, and then that sits on. Now you'll see that they're not quite lined up with the holes, they come inwards, and that's where this comes into place. So this is an overhang, but here the face of this comes forward, and this area is where we attach to. So the bracket that we make, the plate that we use, plug welds to this face, then you put a twist in it so that it can come down there like that, and that's where your rib will go as well. So just got to get that lined up and looking as neat as we can. We don't really want to be visible, you want to just make it look like part of the whole bracket. Keep it in the profile, keep it low profile, plenty of clearance, but solid and rigid. Alright, doing that now. We're going to get that piece of plate. There's our 2mm plate. I bought a strip that wide because I thought it would suit nicely. That's a bit thicker than your normal. I think that might be 3mm actually. It's thicker than your normal 1.5mm anyway. It's thicker stuff anyway, that's for sure. I'm going to cut that now. I'm going to work out how to do that. Look, let's put that on. That's almost there. It's a shame because it would have been easier just to have that in one piece. But I could taper cut that so that it tapers out and give us more surface area. Let's see how that looks. We'll try that. Bear with me on this one. I'll just come up with a few ideas. I'll be back to report shortly. Okay, so we're mocking up the plates. Just spot welded one there now ready. I'm going to go spot weld the other one. I'll take you over to the spot welder. Let's see that in action. Let's go and do that. Away we go over to our little spot welding corner here. We set it on max power now. Might have to take a couple of hits to get these through. I'll test them, make sure they've all taken. Ready for doing that. Lights on for you. Lights on. Right, I'll just line that up. What we'll do, I'll clamp this with the grips. Hold on. Okay, ready to do the spot welds for the gearbox tunnel brackets. First one on. As you can see, it'll take a couple of hits before we shine on. There we go. Right, I'll do a series of those now. Okay, clamping on for our tunnel bracket. Lock on there, because it can get quite hot this. So you should be overhead me now for the spot welding operation. I turn the controller now to full power. I've done quite a few, I'm on the last few ones now. You should be roughly central on my screen, so we've only got 2 more to do on this bracket. We're on max power, so you'll see with the max power setting, we go through. One more for that one till it sparks. Boom, there you go, what did I tell you? One more on that bad boy till it pops. And again, pop. There you go. You know you've done it when you get that pop, you see. So another one there to pop. Quite satisfying doing spot welding. Boom. Okay, so there we go. Whoops, our spot weld's through. And now we'll shape these in the vise. We're going to shape this in the vise to suit the profile of the transmission tunnel. So I'll go ahead and do that now, take you over to the vise and we'll give this a jiggery pokery bend. Okay, with the brackets now shaped to the profile of the transmission tunnel, I've just duck them backwards and forwards and just bend and twist in the vise until this fits on the inside of the tunnel. That gives us a platform to put the captive nuts on for the cross member. So now we've done all that, we're going to put the reinforcing ribs. Now we know that profile's correct, so just a straight rib down the middle there, just a bridging piece here, that's all it's for. Bit of box section going on now, so we cut a section of box, slit the back of the box and bash it till it just follows that profile, then we weld it on. Can't spot weld that one, we just have to get the MIG out and MIG that in, then you've got nice chunky looking brackets. Okay, in the grips you'll see our completed rib piece now for the bracket. That's just a box section sliced in half, then a slit in it there, then that goes up and we now MIG that to the end, and that gives us a reinforcing brace on the bracket, and that would be the completed unit. Then that'd get powder coated on. We've just got to do the captive nuts at the top, and then that follows the contour of the transmission tunnel. That's for this side here, so you can see. And that makes the platform for our bracket to sit on, and away we go. So I'm going to get the MIG on that now and get that MIG'd up. I'm going to go under the car and check it's the same profile on this body shell as it is on that one I've been messing with outside. It should be. Okay. Right, that's one bracket done. There's the rib on it now, just the inverted box section sliced down the middle. So that's fitting on the inside of the transmission tunnel. Your gearbox mounting plates on top there. We just MIG up these joints where we've slit that to bend the rib, and we've got the spot welds on there, but I'm also going to put a little bit of MIG on it as well. Spot welds just help us assemble it, but we think they're through okay. So a nice piece there. Don't know if it looks factory, but it's a nice looking bracket anyway. Quite happy with the design of it. So we'll tidy up the edges, sand it all off, and then I'll call that a night for tonight. Then we'll tackle the other side. Let's take you around to the other one. This has got a bit more of a twist in it to get around the curvature of the tunnel, but I've just gone underneath the car, and if you hold this in place about 5 maybe 8 mil away from the cross member mount, so looking at it this way, you're about there. So what we're going to do, we're just going to put the captive nuts on a little piece of box section that adds on top of this, so that the bolt's got something to draw into and it's kept inside here. The reason is that the cross member bolts at the moment are a bit too close to the edge of this, and I've no way of creating any gap. So I'm just going to build 2 little pieces on the top of each one, so that'll have that on top of there and that on there. And what it means is when these bolt to the car and the gearbox goes in the car, the gearbox is going to land on it, and I'm not quite sure which way it's going to go. So we bolt these pieces to the cross member, these pieces in my hand will have captive nuts in them, bolt into the cross member then butts up against this, and when you find the best place for it, that's where I put the welds. So then the welds would go on there. Obviously this will be cut to the right shape. Then I've either trimmed down that excess piece off, but that would be fitted there, and we'll be able to seam weld round it, and that would give us everything, and the nuts would be inside enclosed in the box. You could even put a cap on the end, a plastic cap on the end. So that's how we do it. We've left that much clearance to do that. I'm gonna wrap for tonight and catch you tomorrow. Right, I've definitely got the engine parallel now with the front of the car. Just use this MDF board and a ruler to measure the distance from the front of the block at various points. So that block sits square with the front, which means the gearbox height's right. So now I'll centralise the gearbox. I'll take you in, get the laser level on. Let's get that gearbox centralised. Right, so our handy laser level there, striking a line down the transmission tunnel, straight through the central points of everything, hitting the bulkhead square on. So central on the transmission tunnel. We now want it to hit the rib of the box. So I'll go in and have a look, see if that's hitting that rib there. You can see it on the rib. So it tells us our box is in the middle of the car, because it can still go left and right with it not having the mounts on yet. We're going to build the mounts with some tolerance in, just to line it up if we had to. Okay, so now I'm going to take you under the car and show you how the mount situation is. I've finished fabricating those, so I'll go under the car. It's a little tricky, we're running out of room. I've got to climb over the frame of the car, crawl under. Got some cardboard down, a little bit of gear oil came out, not much but enough. When I took the speedo cable off and had the gearbox on its right pointing down, so I could get the mounts off. The original mounts off we've removed, so they're not in the way anymore. So here we are. Now you'll see the rib brackets that I've done just here, and they fit quite well. There's one either side, of course. Nice strong rib brackets. They're just resting at the moment on the Granada Mark III transmission cross member. So if I take you a bracket to have a look at, stick this on the mag mount, or lights on a mag mount, which makes life easy. Slide a bracket out, and here's our bracket. So following the contour of the transmission tunnel, a strengthening rib down the centre, spot welded and then MIG'd on. It's a solid piece, that'll get powder coated. It needs some holes drilling in it first. so we can mount it to the car. Actually, it might not get powder coated because I'm welding this to the car, so it's just going to have to get painted on the car itself. The kind of item that really matters. If it's powder coated, we'll get primer on it, and it'll be some seam seal goes on it, and it just gets body matched with the rest of the car, I think. I don't know if I want to make these removable or not. I'm not quite sure how to play this yet. I'll give that some thought. We could do captive nuts on it and bolt it from the inside, but then the bolts are going to be in the transition tunnel and they're going to make marks on the carpet where you see the bolts, so we can do it that way. Got to find a way of fixing that to the car, really. So there's two. This one down there, that's got side rib as well on it with a plate. It's a solid piece of kit. All I've got to do now is I'll put these in position, and we've got to line up the bolt holes, and we've got to fit the box section to this bottom piece, and the box section has the captive nuts in it. I've left room for the box section to go on, and that's got captive nuts in it. We mock it all up, and then I tack on the box section underneath the car, so that then you can bolt up through here. That is the plan. So I'm going to do that next. I need some box section next. But there's the gearbox in. That's its final height. The selector rod lever's got room. Looks like the speedo cable's got plenty of room. That's the electronic one that gets replaced. That'll be coming out there. So there's room at this height, but you did have to take the engine mounts off. Okay, so that they've got to come off. So next job now, just to get the captive nuts and the final brackets for these. I'm going to get that set up now. Right, I'm just marking out for the captive nuts. So two captive nuts going on that side of the bracket there. Now you'll notice it's not central to that, but that's the best we could get the design to go for. As I've made this bracket and stuff, I've gone the best I can. I'm still going to get a good fix there. So it's not precision engineering, but for an amateur, we're all amateur stuff here. It's a strong bracket. Right, so I'm going to weld them nuts in place. They're held in with the bolts for now, but we just put our weld round here. That gives us those captives. Then we've got two more to do. More captive nuts in and ready to weld. So I'm going to go over to the welder and get these tacked on. It don't need to be mega strong, it's just to stop the bolt spinning. So over to our welder over here, we're set up. Just get these nicely on. So that's all part of our gearbox mount bracket system. Okay, our bracket production line going good. Captive nuts welded in. So watch this because it'll be hot. Captive nuts on. Both brackets done. This is the spacer bracket for this side. It required a twist on this, so we're using that to hold the captive nuts. These ones, the captive nuts can fit on the bracket themselves. On this one, it ended up being too close to the edge of this, and also what I didn't notice is the Granada cross member mount dipped down, and I've made it all as one level plane, but it doesn't, it dips down, so that's making up for the dip down, but it serves as a housing for the captive nuts, so it didn't really matter. Doesn't quite look as neat, but it'll work. It actually gives me a little bit more accurate positioning, because I'm able to actually turn that and clamp it onto here when it's all lined up and weld it in place, so that gives us exact positioning. That side turned out pretty good. This side, as I said, because the bracket, I never noticed it goes down at the end. My mistake, we live and learn. So I'm ready to bolt these to the cross member, then put the cross member up under the car and mark out my exact positions, and I should be ready to plug weld these into the tunnel. Alright, Going under the car again now with the spanner, and we're going to bolt up. Okay, back under the car. There's a lot of crawling around involved in this one, I can tell you. We're not for claustrophobics under here, but I like it. It's nice and cozy. So I'm just going to put the brackets up and get them onto the cross member and get them onto the nuts and bolts now. Let me do that because I've only got one set of hands. Okay, just putting the centre bolt on. That'll draw the cross member up. This is all to get the gearbox mounts if you've just tuned in. A4LD 4-speed gearbox going into Mark III Cortina. Mounting brackets. This is the job in hand. So here's one we did earlier with its captive nuts ready. That now offers up into the space here. I thread it through and let it rest on the it's just jamming on the gear linkage there. Move the gear linkage out of the way. We rest it onto the cross member and we get our bolts through there. Now there she goes, it just snapped into place. That was a nice feeling. Here's our bolt. Cross and just in. She'll be able to get that. Lovely, that's biting. So that'll take it into the place where it fits against the transmission tunnel. One more to go. So those captive nuts working the magic. And now we're in there. There might be some welding flashes on those nuts. That one's alright. Might get a spanner on that one. So it's going to draw that in. Then this side you'll see the packing piece that we fitted because I boo-booed. See how the cross member goes up and down. That messed me up. But anyway, it's not too bad. It's still going to be a nice job. A plastic end cap will go on there. You can get end caps for box sections, so it's like an insert, pop on plastic insert goes in, so it won't be too bad. So bracket for this side. Now we're trying to adjust the light. Feed this bracket up. Coming from your right hand screen. Across. I'll try and get it up there. Let me pause while I do that. It's a tricky one. Hang on. Pausing. Okay, that's in and ready to rock. Lined up. Now you can see how that box section comes in handy because it allows me to taper the profile exactly to the bracket. Trying to get that bracket to twist exactly to the shape of the cross member was difficult. This creates a platform. Sorry about the shaky camera work. The bracket sits on that platform now. That just needs welding, so I've got the welder ready. I'm just going to tack it on so that when I take everything off it's all in position. This side straight in. All we've got to do now is attach it to the bulkhead. That's all we've got to do. We drill through from the inside with about 10 plug welds on the brackets. We'll clamp them, drop the gearbox down, and we can get the clamps through the aperture of the gearbox, clamp the brackets tightly in place. In fact, actually no, better not drop the gearbox down. We need it doing in position. Something might change if I do that. So we've got to get those brackets tacked on. Alright, the first thing to do is to get a weld onto that top bracket there. So on I go now. The welder's ready to go. Ready to go under and fit this. I've just put a little scallop out of the ribbing just to give the selector gear linkage just a little bit more clearance. I noticed there's about 5mm clearance and now there's 10mm. That's enough in case there's any engine vibration. So a little scallop out of the rib just for that selector linkage. Okay, going under now. Okay, so there you have it, one completed near offside transmission tunnel bracket mount, all ready to go on. So that's how it works. Strengthening rib down there, that spreader plate there to go to the transmission tunnel, inside face there is plug welded on to transmission tunnel. That bottom piece there adapts out, fits onto the cross member. There's your cross member captive nuts, and that one's ready to rock. It's a nice solid piece of kit. The other one's bolted onto the, still bolted onto our cross member there. Again, following the profile of the inside face of the transmission tunnel, so up it goes. You can see how that picks it up, and there's plenty of clearance with it following that shape there. You don't lose any, you don't get any intrusion into the bell housing. There's still loads of room, so that's how it would be. Let's put that one on there. So there you go, those two on, step back, and that's what we've got. All the forces are vertical. It can't twist side to side because of the strengthening ribs. Can't pull down. There's good surface area here. So say we'll get good 10 spot welds, plug welds into that. We've got to go from the inside of the car and do that next once it's in position. I'm going to offer this up now. It's ready. We'll bolt that on and offer it up. And what we'll do, I'm going to put a bit of tension under it with the jack, so it's fitted slightly tighter to the body of the car than it should be, only by say 3 or 4 mil, and then take that distance up with spacers on here. That way I've got a little bit of tolerance. So I'll do that next and then it's out of the way. Let's get this actually fitted and we're done. A nice view for you upside down. Just last of the ones to do. 17s on these I've put. Now, whilst I'm tightening them up, it's actually not connected to the car. I'm just doing it so they're all in position, and that is it. So we can tighten this up now. I'll draw it up into the gearbox. It's the central bolt, which ain't 17, but I don't need to get it that tight. I can feel that's on. So you're underneath the car, looking at it as I would. There's that gear linkage selector, it's just up the top. There's plenty of room for that. Don't think you'll be able to see it, but I'll show you where did that scallop cut out. The linkage rod is just here, and there's plenty of room. There you are. So that's its operation zone there, around there. We have to make a special bar next to link that to the selector. We'll do that separately, but it just gives us plenty of room. See, speedo's going to come straight out here, so we should be all right for that. So all that remains to do, we fix these are designed to plug weld to the chassis of the car next. So now that they're butted up against the car, we just put a little bit of tension under the box just to draw it up a little bit, and then once I've done that, I go up and do the centralisation, and once the jack's holding it in place and it's centralised, we then drill through inside the transmission tunnel, and the plugs will pick up on the brackets here, and then that's it, we are mounted. Okay, so it's up to the car, centralise the box, double check it, because we're just held up on blocks here at the moment. All those blocks there, just packing it up at that level at the front of the engine, as we talked about, that level parallel with the radiator. So we'll go and do all those measurements now, double check, and then we're getting ready. Now, as I said, the idea of putting it up just a bit too high, then I'll put packers behind here if I need them. If I don't, then take them out. It just gives you that tolerance that you might need. I'm hoping that the prop shaft works. I haven't got a prop shaft to do. Haven't got a prop shaft, but it looks like there's clearance there. I'm going to go and get the Sierra one, the Granada one that came with the car. I think I should be able to pull this now because there's no oil going to come out of that. So I might put the prop in and just see how things are looking. But unfortunately, the mount points for the Granada one will be different. So we've got to get a custom prop made, but that's not a big deal. The main thing was to get this fitted onto the car, so it's a nice solid cradle, and that looks good. I can't see that going anywhere. It's going to hold that box really nice. And with the box thing, I'm going to conclude 21 and just have it as the gearbox video and the final send off. So because this is the only thing that stops it going out for paint, is attaching these brackets to the shell. So I'll finish off and leave you with the gearbox nicely mounted. We'll take it off the blocks and we'll see if it holds it nice. A few more things to do before we wrap this video up. Sorry it's not been high octane, but it's a research and development video, and there could be people out there who've considered these gearboxes for their Cortinas and have gone against it because of the hassle of doing it. But I hope this video shows you, if you want to go ahead, some ideas. You may come up with a better way than I did, but it seems to work. I've got clearance, the strong brackets, it seems adaptable. You can take it apart. So I have seen ones where they go straight across here and bolt to there, but I didn't want to do that because I felt that it might lever down. I wanted the forces to be vertical as best that I could, so that's why I did it this way. Again, as I said, up to centralise the box now, ready for its final position. Okay, so that is the completed Mark III Granada to Cortina Mark III transmission tunnel bracket. That is the exact contour of the transmission tunnel. So that now goes up, drill through, loads of 10mm holes, plug, and get that solid. Now there's a debate out. You could bolt through, you could tech screw through. I don't want any vibrations, I want it solid. So that is it. Gotta go underneath there and jack that into the car now. Okay, I'm back down under the car and I have jacked it under tension, so those brackets squeeze in, ready for bolting up, welding up. So it's all on there. Now I'm just going to do the laser check, and then I'll do the front of the engine parallel to radiator check, and then I'll go inside and I'll plug weld. So we're nearly there. It's going to be exciting. We're going to be nicely bolted up. Back out the car again now, we've done that bit. Just some of the lathes underneath, going on the prop shaft tunnel, right in the middle of the prop shaft tunnel, hitting right at the end of the splines of the box, so that looks good. Staying parallel, making sure that the line strikes existing centre features on the car, not the box itself. So I was aiming for the middle of the handbrake aperture, and then if it struck the gearbox, I knew the gearbox was right. You don't aim for the gearbox because that could be in the wrong place, so you go for the existing centre line of the car, which we're on. So looking good there. Okay, in the car, I'm getting ready for the plug welds. I've picked up where the bracket goes, cleaned that up. I'm ready to plug weld the bracket in place. It's on the transmission tunnel. You won't even know them welds are there when I'm done. Okay, drilled, plugged and ready to go. That'll be both brackets. I've done the other side now, so just 7 plugs there to fit. Then we're done. It's all welded in place. I'm all plug welded up at the top. I'm going to draw it to a close for this part of the video. In theory now, when we lower the jack, the gearbox will stay in place. And that's the end of this bit, and then we'll move on to paint. I promise I'll get this into the paint shop as soon as this video's out of the way. This one done, and then we'll start with fresh film. Okay, so sorry it's been a bit techie again, and not a lot of action, but this needed to be done, and I wanted to help. So if anyone else is going to do this conversion, then see if they learn anything from this. Over and out for this part. We'll lock that off the jack, then I'll give you one last view before we close. And straight off, and that's it. Gearbox is now free to suspend itself. Nicely done, nicely in place. There was no creaking or anything like that. Seems a good job. Great stuff. So our gearbox is now mounted. Well done. A4LD in position. We just got to knock those blocks away now at the front. That's it. Supported under its own weight, nice and level, central. Check that, all good. Feels real solid as well. Can't move that. It's taking the whole car. There's no movement or give. You can see it's wobbling on the actual centre bush as opposed to the brackets. So they are rock solid. Really good and secure. nothing on them, so that's nice. So we have ourselves a decent setup, good mounts, and the car now the gearbox can come out of the car. We can pull everything back away from the car, and then off it goes. I promise you it will go. I think I've got to drill 2 holes for the edge plate at the back, and that is it. I might do that at the body shop anyway. So it's back on the phone to Dave now for transport and tell him it's a go. We'll flip it round and paint up and seam seal these brackets as well. So we'll do one flip of the car, just get it back on the trestle, flip it, and just clean up any damaged area under here and a bit more Gravitex over that area. We'll also just check the selector rod while I'm waiting for transport. I'll do that next. I'll check for the selector rod, come engage the gears. I might do that next actually, and just see if we can do that before we wrap. If I wrap now, it's because the video's hit 50 minutes. If not, I'll put a bit extra in for you, but if I don't do the rod in this video, I'll put it in part 22. So over and out for part 21, tech video, gearbox mounting video for the Cortina Mark III with a new 4-speed gearbox. Over and out. Definitely feeling getting tired now, I need to get out of here. Over and out from Cortina City. Thanks for the views. Don't forget, subscribe and comment. I'll always try and get back to you as soon as I can on the comments. And we're doing quite good on the channel as well, so appreciate all the support as always. Don't forget, if you've not seen all the videos, there's tons to browse through. Go through the back catalogue and you'll find all sorts in there. Okay, over and out from Cortina City. Just one last view before we go. Sitting nice and square, nice and central. Everything right, how we wanted it. Real solid. And don't think it's going to knock. There's plenty of clearance around the tunnel, so it does go in okay. Even the cables themselves don't look like anything's going to get in the way. So really happy about that. We'll see you for new developments in part 22. It's over and out again. I said it before, it's over and out. Okay.